In a land of scorching sun and thick humidity, how did our ancestors keep food fresh for weeks, or even months, without a single fridge? The answer is a kind of genius that's still hiding in plain sight in our kitchens, in the saltiness of our fish, the tang of our stews, and the humble clay pots passed down for generations. This is the story of how early Filipinos mastered the art of making food last, and in doing so, created the bold flavors that define our culture today. Before the hum of a refrigerator was the background music to every kitchen, life in the Philippines was a race against time. The enemy? Decay. In a tropical country, where heat and moisture are everywhere, food spoils shockingly fast. A fresh catch from the sea, or a basket of fruit from the trees, were blessings with a very short expiration date, often measured in hours, not days. But that constant pressure didn't lead to defeat. It sparked an incredible wave of ingenuity. It forced early Filipinos to look at the world around them, the salt from the sea, the heat of the sun, the clay in the soil, and turn them into tools. This wasn't just about survival. It was the birth of a culinary philosophy. The techniques they developed out of pure necessity created the foundational flavors of our entire culture, that iconic saltiness, that sharp sourness, and the complex, funky depth of umami that we absolutely love in Filipino food. This is how a problem became a people's identity. The first and most powerful weapons in the Filipino preservation playbook were the elements themselves: salt and sun. Salting, or pag-aasin, is one of the oldest tricks in the book. Salt is a desiccant, meaning it draws water out of food. More importantly, it draws water out of the tiny microbes that cause food to spoil, stopping them dead in their tracks. For a nation of over 7,000 islands, the sea offered an endless supply of this precious mineral. Fishermen would bring in their haul, and knowing they couldn't eat it all before it turned, they turned to salt. This gave us one of the most classic sights and smells of coastal towns: split fish, shimmering with salt crystals, drying under the hot tropical sun. This is the origin of salted and dried fish, broadly known as Daing or Tuyo. While the simplest Daing is just fish and salt, the technique evolved. One of the most popular versions, Daing na bangus, involves marinating milkfish in a mix of vinegar, crushed garlic, salt, and pepper before it's dried. The sun does the rest, concentrating the flavors and creating a product that could last for months, ready to be fried to crispy perfection. This was a brilliant natural way to preserve the ocean's bounty long before the Spanish arrived. But it wasn't just for fish. The same ideas were applied to meat, giving us Tapa. Before it was the famous breakfast dish we know today, Tapa was simply a method. The name has come to refer to meat that's been cured and dried. Strips of meat, often from carabao or beef, were salted and dried to create a protein source that was light, portable, and incredibly long-lasting, perfect for travelers and for making sure there was food during leaner times. The tag team of salt and sun wasn't just practical, it was transformative. It didn't just stop food from spoiling, it created something entirely new, with a concentrated, intense flavor that became a core part of the Filipino palate. If salt and sun were the brute force of preservation, then fermentation was the magic. It's a process that feels almost like alchemy, turning raw ingredients into something complex and incredibly flavorful, all with the help of invisible microorganisms. Fermentation was a key part of our food culture well before colonization, creating everything from souring agents to entire preserved dishes. And there is no better example of this than Bagoong. With the sea providing an abundance of tiny fish and shrimp, what do you do with a catch so small and plentiful? The answer was to mix them with salt and seal them in jars. Left in the heat, an amazing process begins. The salt acts like a bouncer, keeping the bad, rot-causing bacteria out while letting beneficial microbes get to work breaking down the proteins. The result is a pungent, salty, and deeply savory paste that is pure umami. Bagoong became more than just preserved seafood. It became the flavor backbone for countless dishes, a go-to dip for green mangoes, and a meal in itself when sautéed with garlic and pork. But the genius of fermentation didn't stop at the coast. In the rice-growing regions of Central Luzon, like Pampanga, another incredible invention took shape: Buro. The word Buro simply means to pickle or ferment. During the rainy season, you'd have a surplus of two things: rice from the harvest and freshwater fish like dalag, mudfish, from the swollen rivers. This led to the creation of Bagoong fermented fish with rice. Cooked rice, raw fish fillets, and salt are layered together. Sometimes red yeast rice or angkok is added, which gives it a signature pinkish color. The mixture is left to ferment for about a week, allowing good bacteria to produce lactic acid. This process gives it a tangy, savory flavor and naturally preserves the fish. The final product is a creamy, sour condiment, usually sautéed and served with fresh vegetables and grilled fish. A similar method using shrimp is called balao. It was a brilliant way for inland communities to store their catch without a fridge, showing an incredible understanding of their local environment. While some techniques use microbes to preserve food, another uses the very thing those microbes produce: vinegar. In the Philippines, where coconut and sugarcane grow everywhere, vinegar, or suka, was a household essential. Our ancestors knew that its sharp acidity created an environment where spoilage bacteria just couldn't survive. This is the secret behind one of our most famous dishes, adobo. Long before the Spanish gave it its name, the technique of cooking meat in vinegar and salt already existed as a way to make it last in the tropical heat. The vinegar acted as a protective shield, allowing a pot of adobo to sit for days without refrigeration, its flavors getting even better over time. Later, when Chinese traders introduced soy sauce, it was added to some regional recipes, creating the salty-sour profile many of us love today. But at its heart, adobo isn't just one recipe, it's a preservation method. This principle extends to pickling, which gave us Atchara. The most famous version uses grated unripe papaya, but you can pickle almost any vegetable. Green mangoes, shallots, and radishes were all given the pickling treatment. The veggies are soaked in a brine of vinegar, sugar, and spices. The result is a sweet, sour, and crunchy condiment that cuts through the richness of fried or grilled foods perfectly. It was a way to enjoy fruits and vegetables long after their season was over. All of these techniques, salting, fermenting, and pickling, relied on one crucial piece of technology: a container. For early Filipinos, the answer came from the ground beneath their feet. The Tapayan, or large earthenware jar, was the original pantry, fermentation crock, and water cooler all in one. Made from local clay, these jars were essential to daily life. Their porous nature had a natural, slight cooling effect. But their most important job was preservation. They were used to store everything from rice and salt to vinegar. Crucially, they were the perfect vessels for fermentation. A batch of bagoong or buro would be sealed in a tapayan and left to work its magic. The thick clay walls protected the contents from light and pests while allowing the slow, controlled process to happen. These jars were so valuable they were passed down through generations. The long-standing tradition of pottery in the Philippines, from ancient burial jars to the famous Burnay jars of vegan, a craft perhaps influenced by Chinese trade shows just how central these earthen vessels were. The humble clay pot is a direct link to our past, a testament to the ingenuity of using natural materials to master an environment. That constant battle against the tropical heat didn't just lead to survival, it led to the creation of a uniquely delicious food culture. The need to preserve food gave way to a desire to create flavor. Salting, drying, fermenting, and pickling weren't just survival tactics. They were the brushstrokes that painted the vibrant picture of Filipino cuisine. These old-world methods are the reason our food tastes the way it does. It's why we love that play between salty and sour, why we crave the funky depth of bagoong, and why a simple plate of fried fish and rice can feel so incredibly satisfying. What started as a war against decay became a celebration of flavor. Today, even with a fridge in every home, these traditions are alive and well. We don't make Buro because we have to. We make it because it connects us to our heritage. We still crave the sharp tang of Atchara and the salty crunch of Daing. In every jar of bagoong and every pot of adobo, there's a story of resilience, ingenuity, and a people who turned a challenge into their greatest culinary strength. It's a flavor that has truly stood the test of time. What are your favorite preserved Filipino foods? Do you have a family recipe for adobo or atchara? Share your stories and your favorite dishes in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into our culinary past, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about the rich history of the Philippines.